Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is an amazing Star Wars game, let alone a good RPG. And by good, I mean I would approve anybody's choice for making this their favorite RPG ever. And many have, but as many know, Buddhism is a strong influence in this series. But one thing I do love is that this game specifically really pushed the lid of inviting more influences to the table. So join me on a journey through KOTOR, an amazing RPG that I just now have played because of its recent installment on the Nintendo Switch. Even though I know it's not canon, and that even though the remade version is probably going to also not be canon, even though it's really awesome, the story is great and amazing. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, or KOTOR as it's mostly known, is a game that exclusively first came out on the Xbox. When it came out, this was a groundbreaking installment for the Xbox series when it first came out. Now personally, I never got to play it again until just now. The Xbox games that I grew up on was Halo, but the biggest one for me that was actually Star Wars was Republic Commander. You know, getting being part of the Delta Squad, that's a great game. But it just took until way later until I finally heard of this amazing RPG. But I am glad that I didn't get to play it then, because I probably wouldn't appreciate or really enjoy it as much as I would today. My taste as a gamer has changed a lot. Beforehand, I would have rather preferred Jedi Outcast, being a melee boy coming in and slashing and actually feeling like I'm making those choices. But with this game's mix of turn-based but active time battles and basically relying on the foundation of Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think I would have enjoyed it to the same degree. Until now, obviously. I love myself a turn-based game. While this isn't full turn-based, I still really learned to enjoy this game. And this game was made by BioWare, who is the same people who made Baldur's Gate, which I just reviewed not too long ago. So I'm not too foreign to this game's style of combat. I was glad to learn later on that this is really much the grandpa game to a bunch of BioWare's masterpiece. It systems with its dialogue tree that is very famous to me through Mass Effect, another game I need to play and finish, but other games such as Dragon Age. And BioWare really was able to be very creative with the storytelling of this game. Mostly because they took the setting of everything you know of Star Wars and shooting way back, not being restricted with anything that's in the present time. And the story that BioWare tells through this game is amazing, not only just as a RPG, but also as a Star Wars franchise game. It totally makes sense and it works while staying in its own lane and being set apart. Which does make it worse that this isn't canon, but it's fine, it's whatever. I could pretend it's canon, just like I could pretend Dragon Ball GT is canon, but whatever. I'm not going to go in depth of the game's story, mostly because I believe as a player you should experience that to the biggest degree of blindness as you can. I think that's the best way and the most purest way to do it. And for those who's played the game, I don't really need to go into the story for your sake. But if for some reason you're on the fence for if it's worth your time, it's worth your time, trust me. It's so good. It has enough of the Star Wars feels where you're like, yep, okay, I'm not surprised, but enough of uniqueness to it where it's very enjoyable. And it explores some things that anything else Star Wars related doesn't really do, which we'll touch about a little bit. So on my journey through this game, I made sure to do my best to explore enough of the NPC side quests, which were varied and pretty enjoyable, but also to make sure that I was very good with all my crewmates, which fitted my character because I decided to play the goodest of boys. Yes, I'm a good boy, light side fellow. I didn't really mention this, but this game does have a morality system, which is fixated on the Force. It's on the light side or the dark side. As I mentioned, I chose the light side. And this is mostly impacted through your, well, just your dialogue really, which I was surprised because later on when you become a Jedi, you are available to get dark side things like shooting lightning. It costs more to use, which I was really shocked by it. I really thought they would have been restricted to dark side only, but it's fun. I mean, I'm not complaining. I mean, I got to use still some really cool powers of the Force. without really that much problem, so I'll take it. But while the story has been so good and I've been talked a lot about it, we're finally here to my first real problem with this game, and it is its dialogue. While other entries of BioWare's game, especially Mass Effect, has done a great job of establishing morality choices through its dialogue, and I've really enjoyed that from what little I've played of that game. The problem that we have here in this game is that it doesn't quite work like you would think it would. A lot of people, specifically me, likes to play a character who is more real. Real people don't normally just pick one kind of decision. Sometimes they falter. Sometimes they start one direction and change. And so sometimes you want to play that out through a character. I started doing this when I first played the actual Star Wars Old Republic, the MMO of this game. I barely stepped my toes in it, and that's how I really played my character. First playing him off a little bit on the bad side, more brash, he has some faults, but went on his own hero's journey to turning into the hero. Easy enough. And the problem is that doesn't really work in this game. If you do mix around with emotions, you will be penalized by not getting bonuses to your stats. And so maybe story-wise you want to play that flavor-wise, but for mechanics-wise, which is usually important in RPGs to get your stats good, you probably want to commit of either being a good boy or baddie. Since we already started talking about negatives that I have about this game, I really only have 2 more, so let's just plow right through it, and then we can continue with some more good stuff about this game. A negative that was similar to the one I just talked about previously has to do with stats. Because of how the game sets up the story, you start a good portion of the beginning of the game not a Jedi. With that, you are actually split up into 2 separate classes throughout the game. One when before you're a Jedi and one that's for after you're a Jedi. And there's a level cap of 20 because of D&D Foundation. But that does mean early on in the game you could level yourself up really high before you become a Jedi, which restricts the most you can become of level wise for a Jedi. Basically you could kind of wreck yourself, because then that may limit yourselves from unlocking as many Jedi Force spells that you could have had in the future. I know they're not technically called spells, but let's be honest, we all know Jedis are literally just wizards, but it's cool, whatever. So yeah, I started with that. I kind of hurt myself a little bit. I didn't go overboard, but it was something that I didn't realize till later on. And it was a little bit of a bummer to find out that, yes, they are separate classes and you could wreck yourself through that. The final little gripe I have about this game is that it's a little bit jank. This is not really a big problem for me because, well, we're playing an Xbox game. What do you expect? Obviously, it's not going to be amazingly works fine. And I've never been one who has been afflicted and be like, oh, this is not working perfectly. How dare they? Like, it's fine. It's whatever. But yes, this game is a little bit jank, and you'll see that from time to time, especially even in the port of over to Nintendo Switch. Again, it's fine. But on top of that, even the battle style or the battle mechanic and combat scenario, it feels a little bit jank, especially trying to control your companions and even yourself, which can suck, but overall it was still very enjoyable. And again, the combat, I got used to it pretty quickly and it was fine. So while we've talked about some things that I've really enjoyed, specifically just different force powers that the game does give you, allowing you, even though you're on a light side, you can still do dark side. Weird, but hey, I'll take it. And just in general, the story and the varied NPCs that's throughout this game, I've really enjoyed that. But we've also talked about some negatives that I found in this game. Some things that's like, well, yeah, this is kind of a problem. This isn't a 10 out of 10. But I think we should talk about some more about the philosophies and a little bit of what's embedded within this game. Throughout the game, you have specific moments where you get to learn about the Jedi Code. Well, when you become a Jedi. But there's also another part where you get to learn the Sith Code, which this is the only element in the whole franchise of the series of the canon that ever had a moment that I know of there being a Sith Code and it going into that. Again, not canon, but it's still very fascinating. And I was intrigued once it showed. I was like, oh, let's get into this. Let's see what the Sith are about. Because normally what we've seen so far in the franchise, it's usually just been, they're just bad to be bad. About it. So first, very briefly, let's just show up the Jedi Code and let's go through that. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. there's no death, there is the Force. So the biggest thing with this code, or even just outside of it, and this is where we know the biggest connection to Buddhism, is the idea of with the Force and the life force and what that means of it, everything being connected. It's similar to Buddhism in the aspect of Prada within Buddhism. Again, the life force that everything is connected and everything has energy, or chi as some know it as. So when first looking at the Jedi Code, instantly for me, because I'm a weeb, the first thing I think of is Ultra Instinct with Goku and Dragon Ball, which is very much, again, another Buddhism influenced thing. Again, it's the whole aspect of letting go and emptiness and neglecting any kind of fear and any kind of rise of emotion that can inflict you and basically persuade you to do things. Letting go of that. But another thing it makes me think of, honestly, is Christianity. Honestly, to me, the biggest thing about the Jedi Code and the Sith Code is that they're basically extremes. And that's where there is some problems and it kind of doesn't work for Christianity, is that there's aspect of it to where it does reach a lot of it, but it doesn't go all the way. A lot of it, it's because of the why. And so, like, yes, there is serenity, there is no chaos, there's no fear of death, there's none of that as a Christian, because God. The aspect of letting go is very much a real aspect. And as a Christian, you are to let go of fear and emotions because you have God. When you die, you go with Him. Like, you are saved. And on this world, this is a fleshly, sinful world. But also within the Jedi Code, it assumes that the human body in itself is afflicted and that it is harmful and bad. And while this is commonly looked at as the yin-yang of light side and dark side, for me as a Christian, it looks like, oh, this is the idea of the sin through Adam. Ever since in the Garden of Eden, Adam sinned, that brought sin into the world, death into the world, and from then on, it's assumed or looked at that every person is born with sin. Yes, it's been thrown back and forth of, oh, is that actually true? Are you born sinful, or does it take to a certain point and then your sin, you make that choice? While that's up in the air, there is one aspect of the side of, yes, you are born sinful. And that aspect alone makes me think of assumption of the human being sinful or evil. But as we go and look over to the Sith side, we'll actually see where it's like, yeah, no, some things are essential. The Jedi Code goes a bit too far and it does neglect some things that, well, simply makes people human. And the Sith Code is, peace is a lie. There's only passion. Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. So yeah, the biggest part of this aspect of difference is, well, passion. Passion is a heavy influence, and I would believe it's something that does make us human. During this part of the game, you get to learn more about the Sith and how their philosophy, it says through conflict, that's how people grow, which I would greatly agree. That is when we grow the most. Even when you just compare it to something like working out. The way to grow your muscles and to make it stronger is through stretching it and weakening it and pulling it until it tears a tiny bit. Not too much to where it snaps completely, but you do tear, and it's through that conflict that it grows. And that's how our character actually grows too. When we even go back to the hero's journey, you keep on going with your false belief until you hit a point of conflict. And it's through that conflict that you can make a decision and grow from. So yeah, I would agree with the Sith. This passion and conflict is important. And they even go into an aspect of love and how it's the most dangerous thing of all. But again, even the Sith are a bit too far out and extreme with what they believe. It's more their purpose and what they directed to. It's all selfish and self-directed, which is not something I would say is very Christian. And it's easy to see where some of the Sith code does go wrong, and that's because, well, it's very influenced or similar to the actual real belief of Netzchik's belief, or his philosophy. It's where we get the big phrase of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The survival of the fittest, that kind of mentality. And we see this within the story of the Sith and how at one point the apprentice will usurp the master and will challenge it. And through this process, the idea of everybody will get stronger, the Sith will become stronger overall through it, follows that whole philosophy. Again, this is not really a Christian thing. A Christian philosophy doesn't believe in only in the strongest. There's many aspects of the Bible where it does teach of protecting the weak and actually showing their use and utility, and that's important to care for them and that they have value, really. But as I mentioned about humanism and the flaws of the Jedi Code, the biggest part that really showed this and was brought to my attention throughout this game was with, well, one of your companions, Jolee, his dialogue about the Jedi Code. Throughout dialogue, Jolee actually says to you, love doesn't lead to the dark side. Passion can lead to rage and fear, and it can be controlled, but passion is not the same thing as love. Controlling your passions while being in love, that's what they should teach you to be aware. But love itself will save you, not condemn you. This is an aspect to the story that I would love to see explored so much more into more Star Wars franchise series, whether it's just the movies or even just animated stuff, or it's just more games. I would greatly enjoy more of this. And I know I'm not alone. Many people want the aspect of exploring, well, the neutral side of things. People who aren't just connected to the religious part of each code, but just the idea of, I want powers, but I'm gonna be neutral. And for me, this aspect of, well, love is actually powerful, it's not condemning, does feel more to me like a Christian aspect of, well, combining a lot of these things. It's not extremes, but it's actually good qualities of both. But throughout this game, it is looked at a little bit sometimes that it's either or. It's good side or bad side. And on top of that, it's also looked at as, well, you either are on the dark side or the good side. But then this game does another thing. And while this is kind of thematic throughout the Star Wars series or all of its stuff, I think this one does it the best and does it in a way that, like, I enjoy so much. And that's the theme of redemption. The whole story of this game is about redemption. And it's really thematic throughout different NPC quest lines, through your companions, or even through the main story. And I love how they do it. It is the aspect of the questioning of, once you go to the dark side, is that it? Or can you come back? Is there redemption? For most of the movies and shows, it seems like for the most part, no. I mean, we do get it here and there, but usually not the case. And that could show the scarcity or the actual consequences of the dark side of, like, well, it is possible. It's just real hard. But yes, redemption is a theme throughout the story of, well, you choose your path. You're not stuck here. And again, this is another aspect I love that makes me think of Christianity, of the idea of the story of redemption. You can always be saved. You never can do anything too badly or too sinful. You can never be too rotten to not be saved. I mean, that was personally the case for me. I never truly believed that I could be saved. I thought that my value was worthless. Why would God love me? Why would he want me? But it was always my choice to say yes to him and accept his love, his grace, and his ultimate gift of salvation. This game is an amazing game, and I truly have a better understanding as to why people say this is one of the best RPGs ever. It's a surprise why it's taken me so long to play this game. Again, I'll fill you in. It's mostly because, well, there's a lot of great games I need to cover. There's plenty of Final Fantasy games I still need to cover. I'm for sure gonna play the second entry of this game, KOTOR 2, especially before the remakes, because I'm excited. I want to cover more of this stuff before we get into it. But yeah, there's so much to cover. But I hope you guys liked the video, and if you want to join me on this journey of going through these games as a Christian and playing them, exploring the journeys of the stories told, and just talking about it and discussing it with you guys, well, hit the subscribe button down below. Honestly, it does help out the channel a lot. It helps, well, one, motivate me to keep on powering through and bring this content for you guys, but also it does help hopefully get me to a point to where I can do this more full time, and hopefully will bring even better content for you guys. But that's it for today. I'm out of here. Go play KOTOR. Do it. It's a great game.